The number of undefeated teams have been cut in half. Quite literally. This is Sports Hour. It's been a couple weeks since we are now a little bit closer to halfway through the season. Halfway will be next week. And a few of the teams have done quite well. In fact, playoffs are still on the horizon. A few teams that, of course, did not win this last week were some of the absolute best teams, and some teams didn't do as well. Panthers lost to the Lynx in overtime this last week. The Panthers and now have joined that list of teams that are not undefeated anymore. Okay. But there are still 3 undefeated teams going into this last week. The Indians are still undefeated after they beat the Leland Cats. That took off the undefeated portion for the Leland Cats. Thankfully, they were 4-0-1, so they had won every game, but they had lost. Meanwhile, the Tigers are still technically undefeated. They're 5-0-1, so they haven't lost yet, but they're not completely undefeated. And last but not least, we have the Indians, who are undefeated. Looking at the divisional rivalry, the Indians are undefeated. Now, if the playoffs were to happen today, there are still quite a few teams that would make it into the playoffs. Yes. But looking at the actual ranking for this, Panthers are still number 1 in offensive ranking. And the number 1 defense happens to be the Indians. So they're both pretty close to undefeated teams. They're not quite undefeated, but they are up there in that portion. This is going into week 6. This next couple of weeks will determine whether these teams will actually stay undefeated. Looking at the playoffs, the NBL, if the playoffs were to happen today, the number 2 seed would be the Panthers. The Indians would be the number 1 seed. The Tigers would be number 3 seed. The Falcons would be the number 4 seed. And then the Dogs, Indians, and Cardinals, all in the NBL North, would be the 5th, 6th, and 7th seed. And the Pirates would be sneaking in with the 8th seed. Now, some teams are actually pretty close to being in the playoffs on the process. But unfortunately, all those teams that are in the playoffs would be on the edge of the playoffs are all 3-3, which is not enough to put you into the playoffs at this time. Meanwhile, in the ABL, the Huskies, the Otters are currently first in the league in the ABL. They only lead by a little bit. They're not quite. They're a whole ahead by a little bit. The Huskies who are also undefeated are currently second. Techs are third. They haven't lost any games yet, but they did tie. However, they are probably the best considered team right now because they are fourth and second in the league for when it comes to offense and defense. As for fourth, Lynx Cats, the only leading team that has a loss right now. Lynx Cats currently lead that division. And the Lynx, Superman, Lions, and Chargers are all pretty close near. If we looked back at the, let's see, is this the right one? That's not it. Yeah, but there's quite a few things going into this next week. Now, the power rankings have kind of fluctuated. The Packers have gone up 2 rankings this last week after winning this last week. The Saints also won their game, and they actually defeated a pretty powerful team. The top 10 players are all in a great position. The Techs are just outside of it to be the people that are going to be actually up there. Now, power rankings mean nothing, but currently the Lynx are leading. They were first last week, and they're going to be first this week after taking a win against the Carolina Panthers. The Panthers, not Carolina Panthers. Moving on to talking about each of the divisions up to this point. Panthers actually have taken the first loss in the long time. I think, let's see. I'm correct, I believe this is it here. Never mind, that's not it. There are still quite a bit of things where our teams are going to be close onto this thing. I don't know which one it is. But teams that currently, if we actually looked at the possibilities, you can see teams that are struggling like crazy. The worst team by far is a Stars. Stars have given up way more points than any other team. Panthers, on the opposite, have done the exact opposite spectrum, getting over 260 points ahead of the people they play against. And not too far from them, the Hawks have also had that exact problem. Now, these are when we look at the playoffs right now. Now, I want to talk a little bit about how the playoffs work for the Conference fans who haven't seen it. The first will play the 8th seed, the second will play the 7th seed, and just how every regular it's. Third will play the 6th seed, the fourth will play the 5th seed. Just like it's just how normal playoffs. The only difference is in the NFL is they have a bye. There's no bye in the NBL, and it's best of 5 games. So, as of now, it was best of 3 games a couple seasons ago, and now it is best of 5. And it was actually just best of 1 back in 2016. So, a long time ago. I don't think we have anything off this one. So, teams that are currently still up there are very high position. Now, we're going to talk about what teams are, if they're in the playoffs, that we think are going to be making it farther than their actual positions. The playoffs teams currently, if we were actually to put this up in it, I would say we have the Indians and the Pirates. Indians are absolutely demolishing the Pirates at this time, which will be eliminating them, keeping this up to round 2. Panthers would probably beat the Cardinals. They're in the same division. They're in a great position. They would probably move to round 2. I don't think the Cardinals would do it there. The Knights and the Tigers would actually be putting in a pretty good position. I would say the Knights actually would move to round 2 in this case for the Knights' position, just because I think the Knights are just not, Tigers are not quite as good when it comes to it. But we'll find out about that this week because I believe they play each other. Falcons playing the Dogs. I would probably give the Dogs an advantage here. Then it would come to the next teams, which would be the Knights and the Indians. And unfortunately, I think the Indians would win this game, sending them to round 3, eliminating the Knights. The Panthers and Dogs would face off each other, and unfortunately, it would probably be, I would believe it would be the Panthers. The Panthers have already played them at least once here, and I think that means the Panthers would face off in round 3. Now, this is where it gets difficult when it comes to figuring out who would move to the Ball Bowl. Ball Panthers have been to quite a few Ball Bowls in the most recent years. If you look at the playoff record for the Panthers, you can see the Panthers have had it. They've only had 2 losses. I don't know if we have the... We don't. This is actually a really tough one because Panthers have 104 wins and 2 losses. I think the Indians are one of the few teams that just don't have a very good record when it comes to it. Indians are really good this year. We looked at the Indians. Indians are, well, not exactly good. They've had 3 ties over 104 games they've played. I don't know the Indians look like they're going to be very good, but I'm actually going to give the Indians probably the win off of this one, putting the Indians into their first ever Ball Bowl. And actually, it would be wins. Looking on the other side, we got the Otters playing the Chargers in round 1. I think the Otters would have to win this one. I just don't see them making it through that one. Lions face the Huskies. Huskies have actually done really well. And I believe the Huskies and Lions are in the same division. They're not, but it comes down to me. I think the Huskies would probably make it through round 1 as well. Superman and the Tex. Superman and Tex are absolutely are really close. Now, the Superman and Tex are not in the same division. It comes down to really who I think is better. And sadly, even though Tex are doing really well, I'm going to have to say I think it would be right now the Superman that would make it through. I think it would be a close game. I don't know how many games we're looking at. And then kind of Lynx. These 2 teams have faced off before. They actually faced off for last year's Ball Bowl. And for me, that's tough. I would probably give the Lynx the win here and say the Lynx would probably be eliminated for that. In round 2, it's the Otters and the Superman. Otters would win that one by quite a bit, especially since they are in the same division. The Otters, okay, they're not in the same division. I would say the Otters would win that one off it. I think Superman would be eliminated. Lynx and Huskies. This one would be tough. Both teams are really good, and I would have to say it is going to be tough. Could say that the Lynx would probably come on top. Huskies probably would put up a really good fight. It would probably be something like 3-2. But I would eliminate the Huskies and say it would be the Lynx and Otters that would face off each other. Now, with the Lynx and Otters, they are in the same division. And they both have great offense. They both have great defense. I think it comes down to the fact that it would be the Otters are strong, but they're not as strong when they need to come to it. Lynx are stronger when it comes down to points scored, and I think it's just going to come out to it. I would say it would be the Lynx going to their second Ball Bowl. Oh, not only that, I think they would actually win against the Indians. So unfortunately, it would probably be back-to-back Ball Bowls for the Lynx if this was how it was to go right now. Wow, we'll get to talk about the big picture next week. Predictions, or some of these predictions for Oregon. If you looked at last week, we went 17-3. I had the best score. I have 99 wins at correct predictions this time right now, and 21 incorrect predictions. So I'm actually doing pretty well. John, on the other hand, isn't doing too well. All right, week 7, we got some pretty interesting games and pretty close games. Bears and Kings are facing each other. This is a tough one for me because the Bears and Kings are both pretty tough competitors when it comes down to it. In looking at the Bears, they have a 25-20 hits versus the Kings, who are much worse. They're a little better in defense, but I just don't see the Kings having enough to win this game. I'm going to go with the Bears. I think it's going to be a much closer game than we think. All right, Cardinals and the Warriors. Please tell me that the Cardinals win this game. If the Warriors somehow come up and win that game, Warriors were supposed to be really good this year. They have not been good whatsoever. They haven't won a game yet. In fact, I don't think anything is even close, to be honest. I might be a little bit wrong about that, but it comes to the point. I think the Cardinals are a whole lot better. If we looked at the Cardinals' position, Cardinals are 13th and 15th. As for the others, the Warriors, yeah, they're down here at 38th and 32nd. They're not even close. This is going to be an absolute blowout for that team. So, absolutely think that this is going to be a blowout. It's going to be the Cardinals win the game. Packers and Giants. Now, I actually think this game is going to be a lot closer than what we think. It's probably going to go back and forth. Packers have done pretty well over the last couple weeks. I will say that the Packers do put like they have a stronger basis. Packers are, however, they're 9th in defense, even though they don't have a great offense. Looking at they're facing off the Giants, who are kind of in the lower end for that position. I'm going to go with the Giants winning here. I do think that the Giants, and no, I do not want to do that. The Giants are going to use not the Giants. I'm going to go with the Packers. I think the Packers can have a slight advantage. It's going to be a close game, though. Chargers and Dragons. Chargers are +1. This is going to be a super close game between all of those teams. I don't even know what to go for here because the Chargers currently are 14th and 16th, while the Dragons are 22nd and 12th. This is going to be a pretty close battle between these two teams. I'm going to go with the Dragons with the upset here, but I think it's going to be a very close game. Browns and Angels. This is the second time these two teams have faced off each other. They play at 3:30. That's a weird time, but it is what they're doing. That's the time they're doing it. It's a Browns favorite team. Now, if you look back at their last game, I don't know if you can find it. Let's see what his last game was. Let's see. I don't even know what the Browns' last game was. Browns and Angels. Last game, Angels was a close game. Angels lost by 3. This is going to be even. I think this is going to even be much more one-sided. I think the Browns have kind of figured what they're doing. Angels have still working on it. I just don't think they're going to have it. I am going to say the Browns win this one, although I think the Angels will put up a good fight. The Legends and the Knights, I think it's pretty obvious to say that the Knights are going to win that game. Legends just haven't shown anything up at this point. Even though the Legends are favored, I can't see them winning that game. Falcons and Panthers. Sure, Panthers took a loss this last week, and it's kind of sad to see the Panthers don't have an undefeated record anymore. But the Falcons are just not the team to worry about right now, because if you look at the Panthers, first 16th, looking at the Falcons, 29th, 24th, not even a close battle for these two teams. It most certainly is going to be the Panthers that win that game. Indians and Lions. I do think this is going to be a great game between these two teams. Indians are predicted by 19, and I think that's probably going to be around the average score difference. Looking at the Indians right now, the Indians currently first in defense is 16th in offense, kind of the opposite of the Panthers, versus the team they're facing, the Lions, who are not nearly as good. I'm going to go with the Indians here. I think it's pretty fair to say the Indians will win this game, although I think it will be a lot closer again than we actually think. We got the Dogs and the Stars. If anyone thinks the Stars are going to win this point, I'm sorry. The Stars just don't have anything. They're probably ranked the worst team in the NBL right now. Stars are 39th and 31st, and that's pretty bad considering there's not many teams. There's only 2 teams I think that currently have a worse position than them. The Warriors have a worse position than them, and I think right now the Knights and Giants are tied to have the worst position in scoring for defensively, but I don't think much of a difference. I think the Knights are actually really good. It just comes down to the fact that I don't think they're going to have enough, but I don't think the Stars are going to have enough. Bulldogs and Foxes. This is going to be a close game. Foxes should win this game. If we look at the Foxes have a little bit of a thing. They're 2-4, the 24th and 19th, versus the team they're facing, the Bulldogs. Who are 20 or pretty bad idiots. I think both these teams are not good, and I think this is going to be an absolute really close game. In my opinion, this is going to be a lot closer than you might think. I know the Foxes are, supposedly better, but I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt and say that the Bulldogs, I'm going to go against everyone right now, will win this game. It's going to be a very close game either way. Ravens and Hawks, if the Ravens don't win this game, I'm going to have to reconsider everything, because Ravens have absolutely blown everything away. Currently, Ravens are 8th and 8th. Hawks, the 40th, they're dead last in offense, and they are pretty bad in defense. I don't see any way that the Falcons the Hawks don't win this game. Lily Cats and Tigers. This is going to be a tough game. This could have easily been the game of the week. It's not, but it could have been. Very much so. I honestly think this is going to be a very tough game between these two teams. I have to say, it comes down to me that there's really close game when it comes to really close games. Tigers are 7th and 17th versus the Lynx Cats are 2nd and 17th. So they're actually tied. They're actually tied right now for defensive position. I would say this is going to be a really close game for both of these teams. I'm going to give the Tigers the lead win on this one, but I think it's a really close game. Pirates and Tex. Pirates have kind of been disappointing over the last couple weeks. It comes down to the fact that Tex are favored by a lot. I mean, it's not even close. Pirates are 20th and 13th when it comes down to the Tex. They are 4th and 2nd. They're a whole lot better team. I don't see the Tex losing this game. Colts and the Werewolves. Werewolves are favored in this game. They're very different in the context of points and scores. Colts are 19th and 22nd, while the Werewolves are a whole lot better. I have to give the Colts the loss here because I think the Werewolves are going to just do slightly better, even though they've had a hard schedule up to this point. 8th and the Beagles. This is going to be another tough game, another game that could have easily been a game of the week. There's a lot of games here that could have been up there, the game of the week. Between the 8th and the Beagles, this is not an easy one to pick. 8th are 3-2-1, but they're near dead last. They have a great defense, but they're just near dead last in the beginning. As for the Beagles, they're at least a lot better on the context of it. I am going to give the Beagles the win here. I do think that it will be a much closer game than we think. As for the Dolphins and Saints at 10 o'clock on Saturday. Okay. It is so close that it's actually literally a tie between these two teams. It is so close. That's how close it is. I'm giving the Saints the win. They're both really close. But you know what? I think it's going to be a super close game. Game of the week, Otters and Lynx. Lynx have gone a lot of game of the weeks. They had the game of the week last week. They didn't have the game of the week before that. But they've had quite a few of these game of the week situations, and I think this is probably the toughest one yet. I will say this could end up being the matchup between two teams that could end up going head-to-head in a battle in the later position, even in the playoffs. I'm going to give the Lynx the win here. I think, unfortunately, that will put the R's down. UNC and Bobcats, I don't see UNC winning this game. I'm giving the Bobcats the win. Superman and Huskies, the other undefeated team. This is another one that's really tough. Huskies are favored by 12. I'm giving you Huskies. Huskies are really good off the context. I think they're going to win that game. And I had this a second ago. I believe the Jets are favored, if I'm correct. Let me see what we got here. I never did finish it. Guys, see here. Okay, so I'll go on and show you what it is for that. Since it's the Lightning currently ranked at 64, and then they get a -8, so they have a 56. Points off when it comes to this. So they're starting at 56, while the Jets have a 26, and they are minusing 10, so they're at 16. So it is not even close when it comes down to this. Currently, that means the Jets are favored by 40. It is not even close to this. We're going to give the Jets the win off of that. And those are our predictions for this next week. Now, one thing we want to look at is see if this was to occur, do the Huskies and Otters play each other at some point? For that matter, do any of these teams, the Otters and Huskies, or any of the undefeated teams play each other at any point during the season? Or we can go look at their positions. I believe the Huskies are down here at the back here. Otters have to play the Huskies the week after next. I'm going to look at that. So it will be the huge matchup because this team, if the Huskies don't lose this week, then this game will decide who will be completely undefeated. They might be the only team that's undefeated versus the other team, which is the Tex. They're also currently undefeated. Let's see. I don't think that Tex in last position. They're also currently undefeated. So they actually have to play the Huskies too. So there's going to only be one undefeated team at some point during the rest of the season. That's all for Sports Hour. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video. Don't forget to keep it on. I'll see you guys in week 8. Yeah.